Welcome to this latest of webinars sponsored by the International Manifesto Group. And this time, this event is also co-organized by Nodud Dol, the People's Forum, the Hampton Institute, and the volume's publisher, the publisher of the volume we are launching in this panel, namely Socialist Education in Korea. The publisher is Iskra Books. So our panel is titled Socialist Education in Korea. My name is Radhika Desai. I'm the convener of the International Manifesto Group. Socialist Education in Korea, the Politics and Pedagogy of Resistance and Revolution is a volume of selected writings by Kim Il-sung on education, and it is edited by Riley Sung-Yoon Park and Cambria York. And today we are joined by the editors and by a few discussants to celebrate the publication of the volume. I'm very happy to introduce this seminar, let me explain why. Socialist education in Korea may seem like an obscure topic. What could possibly be interesting about the pedagogical philosophy of what's generally portrayed in the corporate media as a small socialist country that has cut itself off from the rest of the world in order to preserve what is always portrayed as an insane dictatorship, who brainwashes the people into supporting a cult of personality, and that a small state that threatens the world with nuclear power and is a proverbial economic basket case. A country which even veteran US scholar of the peninsula, who wishes to bring about a lasting peace between his country and the two Koreas, seems to describe very disparagingly. He says about the North, he said he has no sympathy with the North, which is the author of most of its own troubles, specializes in self-defeating behavior, treats like children the masses of its own population unlucky enough to be excluded from the elite, and indulges in such stereotypical hero worship, grandiose exaggeration, and wretched excess as to make even a scholar of East Asia reach for dusty old tomes with titles like Oriental Despotism. These are the words of Bruce Cummings, who actually wrote a book on North Korea in order to promote, he thinks, lasting good relations between the United States and the Koreas. Well, of course, the answer is, what could be interesting about studying the socialist education and pedagogy of this country? The answer is not just a great deal, but I would say the essence of education and pedagogy in the struggle for socialism, which is first and foremost a struggle against imperialism. The fact is that not only is the corporate press wrong, but so are our dominant ways of thinking about pedagogy and education. And these can be corrected in many ways by many of the essays in this book. In contrast to what Kim Il-sung advocates in the book, and the essays included in the book here, which is a knowledge of national history, national circumstances, the national struggle, and national requirements, the education advocated around the world is cosmopolitan, disdains national histories and conditions. Whereas Kim Il-sung's views seek to bind intellectuals and the people, including by making intellectuals understand the people and the people themselves become intellectuals. One can't help in this instance thinking of Gramsci's view that everyone is an intellectual, only some of us are paid to be that, but that's the only difference. The education the West dispenses separates the educated from the people. Just how it does so is clear from the rise of the so-called populist, but in fact fascist, proto-fascist right today in some of the advanced countries, where the key divide has become education. Our education system also forgets Gramsci's argument that Reformation was a far greater cultural event than the Renaissance. The Renaissance may have found a few people, a select elite, soar to new heights of culture, art, science, literature, and so on. But the Reformation brought vast masses of the people into culture. The insistence of the Reformation that everyone should be able to read the Bible led to the standardization of languages and mass literacy in the Protestant countries, and an event that Gramsci considered of far greater importance. But to me, the real significance of Kim Il-sung's writings on Juche and education lies in its understanding of politics and the making of history. If politics is the most fundamentally creative activity, if politics actually makes history, as I think it does, if it is also an unforgivingly collective act, then socialist education in Korea, education in Juche, is about forcing the agency of the people that will make up the political collectivity, about keeping that people intellectually primed so that it can make the right decisions and be able to take up the continuous challenges that imperialism throws at it. It's interesting in this context to consider the question whether this focus on education and ideology is not a little idealistic, not a bit. Creating a material force that is conscious of its own history is essentially creating the conditions for participating in politics and in history in a historically informed way, to create a force that is capable of conscious, theoretically informed political and revolutionary practice on a grand scale, to be capable of an intervention, because after all, the Korean Revolution has been a major event of international significance, to create a force that is capable of intervening in what Marx calls the relations of producing nations, in the international relations or the geopolitical economy of the capitalist world, which also in Marx's words constituted the grandest terrain on which the contradictions of capital appear, and they appear there in their grandest development. The Korean people are intervening not just in their own history, but in the larger confrontation between capitalism and nascent, actually existing socialisms that have set the world on a path to socialism. I would like to end these introductory remarks on a personal note. Reading these essays as someone born and brought up in India and educated until her first degree in India, and who was also fortunate enough to be educated with the textbooks that were written in the 1970s by a brilliant array of India's best intellectuals about the subcontinent's ancient and modern history, its economic problems, its geography and that of the world, not to mention texts written across the natural sciences and mathematics. In the context of a backward capitalism, however, these textbooks could not last. Certainly after I graduated, they were being replaced by pale imitations or worse. Even so, reading Kim Il-sung's views on education that were essentially a way of making Koreans subjectively aware of the objective historical circumstances in which they acted and the objectively historical and world historical challenges they face, I'm only acutely aware of how much is lacking in education in the imperialized world. These essays should be published and read there too.
I'm Michael Hudson. I'm appearing here for the International Manifesto Group. If you like this video and ones like it, please subscribe. For more information, go to the address on the screen.